start by sharing with you this presentation. Then I'm gonna talk about the history of the Norwegian language and its influence on English, because I'll be sharing with you how the old Norse shape the English that we know nowadays, the English we speak. So I'm gonna start by sharing with you a couple of information because you might not know. So this will be the topics that I'll be taking in this presentation. And well, I have some objectives that is to show you and share with you, in case you don't know, the history behind the words that nowadays we are using. So everything will start by for example, with this just simple sentence that I'll say, that is the get an egg from the sky. Now, what if I told you that all those words that I just used are actually from the Old Norse? And what is the Old Norse? Is the Old Norwegian, because English has an influence, if you might not know, from German and also Norway, the Scandinavian countries. There are a couple of countries that shape the English we speak today. So I'm gonna start sharing with you a couple of information of his historical background and how was that people from the north of Europe ended up on British and starting to mix what we all know as an English now. So unpacking a little bit of the historical collision, there was something called Daniel Law that was what made this possible. Because if this didn't take place, maybe English nowadays will be something different, could be something different. But that was, like I mentioned before, a little influence on also from Germany, the Netherlands, and countries from the Scandinavian, that if you don't know, they are the members of the Scandinavia countries are Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Norway. And that is why we can today call English the simple language, because we know that is the more spoken language and is the more easy to learn. So this is because back in the time, to be more exactly, in the 8th century, there was a Viking trip, I can call it, to the what back in the time was known as a British, the UK, and that was the Old Norse mixing with them because they were taking over. There were some battles between those two. So for a couple of time, I don't remember exactly how long it was, but it was a good time for them to become and adapting English words. Well, like what we now know, we know as an English. And I will share with you some of examples that I just, like I said, these were by a group of countries that I can say the more important one, the one who gave the more vocabulary or words share, because they were the mandatory, I can say, was Norwegian. So we have so many words that we are employing now, but maybe without knowing that it's historical background, because as we can, as I can say, or we know that languages are more than just grammatic. Like when you are learning a language, you are not just learning the grammatic rules, but it's more also like a cultural background. So it's also really important to know why this word is the way it is or pronounced the way it is. Because, for example, we have words like skill, sky, scheme, all those S with K are combined from the Old Norse. That was the Old Norwegian language. That was something called the Danla, like I just mentioned, and also the Saxons, Anglo-Saxons speaking from the Old English. So, for example, a sky provides comes from the Old Norse, that is chai is chi. That combination of s and ko in Norwegian, it sounds for us like I say an h. So that is some of examples that I can share with you from those historical backgrounds. And that was prolonged first for contact between two similar but really distinctive languages, because that has also a fundamental reason why English changed so dramatically. Because yes, it has like a historical background, but it's not like exactly copy and paste word. It's more like the similitudes that the English language is still continue keeping like till now, because we know that it's not gonna change. So, like I just mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we have word like day, get, sky, or egg that provides from the Old Norse. And those words mix with the from the West Germany. For that reason, also the influence of the Norwegian language, the way it's spoken, because it has also an influence. There is a lot of historical background from those three countries. So every time it might not be known outside the world, because there is not much of like the people don't talk, or the teachers sometimes don't talk too much about the history of the language. Always are more focusing on the grammatical structures and rules and all that. I just have 1 minute left. But yes, that was like a infusion or fusion of those two important languages that nowadays we know as an English and Norwegian, and the Scandinavian countries that are confirmed by like the three I just mentioned. So that was this presentation for a little historical background of the language we are speaking today, and some of also cultural information of Norway that might not know outside the world, or not much people knows this information. So this was all, and I hope it was really enjoyable for you. Thank you for watching. Oh, do you have any questions?
No, I think this was full information and a very, very interesting presentation. I have never listened about this. Uh, this mix of words and of cultures was given about wars or conquers, conquistation, or by what reason?
Yeah, they were trying to take over the place, try like it happened with us when we adapted Spanish, because Cristobal Columbus discovered America. So we adapted, for example, in that case, the Spanish from them. But with Norway tried to take over, but the Vikings couldn't do it. They wasn't able to take over. So they, instead of taking all over the UK, they just stayed there for a couple of times. How long exactly? I actually don't remember, but it was for a good amount of time for them to start in adapting words from the Old Norse, because we know that it's also Old English words that are more classical, that we are actually not using it in these days. They are more found in really old English books or stuff like that. But they wasn't trying to conquer. They tried, but they couldn't, because there was a war between them. So they fight for a good amount of time. So they, at the end, they just ended up taking words from the Old Norse and adapting it into English. And I think it was the way they speak and adapting sounds, because we know that languages are sounds, phonetic. So they just adapt, but Norway, the Scandinavian, the Viking back in the time never couldn't take over the whole UK.
Stephanie, do you have a question for Lady?
Sorry. Yes. Lady, do you have some other examples about other words like can sound I don't know, equal or very similar in English, or I don't know, like knife or other words like that you can give us?
Yes, they actually the more similar that nowadays are still being used in English is sky. It's just the pronunciation in Norwegian is different, but it's right the same way. That is sky. Also, eggs. The word egg provides from the old Norse that nowadays English is still keeping. The word husband is also from the old Norse. It was just written a little bit different, but the pronunciation is the same. And so far, just remember those that are the more popular. A sky, a body, also a husband, knife, and egg. Those are the ones English still keeps till these days.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, pretty good. Awesome, Lady. I have a question for you. And I think that it's very important that we ground this to our field. And as English as a foreign language teachers, I would like to ask you as an expert on this topic, how can we spread awareness on our students about the rich tapestry that a language has on its background? What would you do as a teacher to promote awareness on the rich diversity that languages have? Now that you have shared about this, personally, I didn't know. I did know the Germanic root that English has, but I didn't know that specifically the Norwegian did that, right? So, as a teacher, what would you do to spread that or
Mm,
to promote that awareness on students?
yeah, it's actually really important for us as a teacher that keep on mind also the important history background. So I will implement that or share that with my students in some of historical fun activities, because sometimes we just are too focused, like I said, on grammar rule, trying to remember this, but it's so fun and so nice to don't just forget about the history behind those words that we are trying to learn. Like, because as a personal, my I like to always dig into things. So why this is written the way it is written, why we pronounce this like that. So when you are interested of the history, the background behind those things, those that activates the curiosity. So keeping students aware of this will be so important to, okay, I'm learning this language, but I also would like to know the history of that, how that ended up being the what it is now. So I'll think that with creativity activities, dynamics, sometimes skip a little bit of the past, perfect, present, continue, future, and all that, to more like this is the way it is spoken and written because of this historical background. What happened in the 8th century, many years ago. So something like that I'll do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You can stop the recording.
Okay.